Peace. So, does paganism in the modern sense really exist? I don't know. I'm starting to really question that, because I've been having these experiences lately in the last like few months, and I'm starting to have a different opinion on what paganism really is, and I think that there's this kind of lie just going around, and not only in pop culture but also in underground culture as well, that is promoting the notion of paganism. But I don't think it's true. I think it's kind of based on a lie. I think it's based on something else that may very well be harmful for us, and I wanted to talk about that, because I think it's interesting, and I think that a lot of people are starting to be awakened, to the notion of what it really entails to be a pagan person versus like not being a pagan person. And I think that people just don't want to be forced into believing something that they don't really believe in, but because of the trendiness of it, people all believe in certain things, and it's not substantial at all. It's not based on any reality. And that's kind of what I want to talk about. So, a few weeks ago, about probably 2 weeks ago, I went to a concert, and it was a girl. She was at Levitt's Pavilion, and she was singing these beautiful pagan songs. And she's from Colombia. She's a Colombian artist and stuff. And in the background, there was a big screen, like TV screen or big monitor, and she was showing pictures of her home city where she comes from. Was obviously it was a really big city that she comes from. So she's a city girl. She's a city dweller. She's not from the country, but yet all her songs was reflective of the country, like it was reflective of paganism. And so I realized that she was singing like that's her niche. Her niche is that she's a pagan person, she's an earth person, so she sings about those things. And there's a bunch of people dancing around who fancy themselves pagan people, and so it's this exchange going on between the audience and the singer and everything, but it's all based on like paganism, which I don't think is true because she's not from the country. And that's not to say the people that live in the city can't be pagan, but I think that this person has a certain lifestyle that's reflected of the city, that's very super urban. And I think a lot of people in the audience that were dancing off from Denver, off on a big city, and their lives are a reflection of the city that they come from, which is fine and everything. But so what is this trendiness? What is this kind of false presentation of paganism, which is not substantially based on any reality because their reality simply is not pagan. If you think about what the word pagan actually means, it means pagadus, and pagadus is a word that's no English word, but it means country dweller. That's basically what the word means. And when the word pagan was starting to be used in the English society and the English word, it was referring to people who weren't baptized into the Christian faith, but were people who still practiced the old religion, who lived in the woods or lived in the mountains. But these people was isolated from the broader society. These people didn't live in the big towns and the big cities. These people just lived in the mountains, and they totally were pagan people. And so when people were referring to them as country dwellers, they were saying that they were void of the sophisticated religion, which namely was Christianity, at that time and everything. So anyone that was void of the knowledge of Christ and the knowledge of the church were considered pagadus, which means pagan. And so that's what the word pagan comes from, what it means and everything. Um, but these people are not pagan in that sense because they're not country dwellers and everything. And so they're singing, and it's obviously very trendy to be a pagan person. It's very trendy to be a witchy person, but really they're not, And so when I was at this concert, I was realizing this is something I realized a very, very long time ago when I used to post videos about paganism. I used to be like, well, I don't really want to post videos about paganism because I'm not living in the country. I'm not living, that's not to say you can't be a pagan and live in the city, but I felt like my reality was reflective of something else, and it certainly wasn't nature and everything. And since I moved and lived in the country for a little bit, I realized what it meant really to be pagan, and I realized that it has to do more with being natural, and being, encased within yourself, but also being submissive to the natural elements, and not controlling the natural elements, but being one with the natural elements, and also being abiding in the natural elements. That's what it meant really to be pagan and everything. But this girl that was singing these songs, I noticed that she kept making her face look really like distorted. Like she kept putting these really strange and kind of frightening expressions on her face. And I realized that she was trying to convey to the audience that she's become turning into an animal. And I think maybe her message was that really, in the end of the day, we're just animals, which is actually not true. We're animals in the sense that we're connected to nature. In that sense, we're animals, but we have a consciousness. We actually have a really high consciousness. And in that consciousness, there's manifestations within that consciousness that animals don't have, So we're not in alignment with animals. We're really not. That's not to say that we should govern over animals, but it just means that we're not in alignment with animals in that innocent sense. And that's why when animals kill other animals in the wild, we don't see it as murder. We only see it as murder when humans kill one another. The reason why, because we know that murdering someone else is more tied into our consciousness rather than being natural animals, natural creatures, and everything. And I was like, when she was making those weird faces and everything, and I was like, well, she's promoting something. And then I noticed that there was a bunch of girls behind me dancing, like probably 7 or 8 girls, and they were like these hippie girls. And when I looked at them, I noticed that they were like, upper middle class women that came, or girls that come from a certain type of social class in society. So these are real beautiful girls that, hippie girls. They probably come from Boulder, wherever, California, and they were all dancing, and they were all dressed, the way hippies dress and everything. And then they started imitating this singer, putting their faces in weird, making their bodies do all these weird positions and everything. And then I noticed there was just something going on that was tied in to being very prideful, like be self-exerting themselves. Like it's almost like they were breakdancing against one another and self-exerting themselves to try to be the better dancer and everything. And then I was just like, well, this thing is not promoting, the girl singing on the stage is not promoting naturalness. She's promoting a certain type of behavioral pattern just based on self-assertion and pride and self-centeredness, for lack of a better word and everything. And I realized that the reason why people right now are converting to like certain type to organized religions right now, because they don't want that anymore. People do not want to be subject to that anymore. Like people don't want to be vain anymore. Like people are realizing and waking up to the notion of what is right for them. And I think a lot of people are choosing the path of humility and being humble and being lowly and hard. What I mean by lowly and hard is like Jesus was like that, the Buddha was like that, all great spiritual teachers were lowly and hard, meaning they don't self-exert themselves. They rather elevate other people, and they put themselves down because they're smart enough to know the true essence of spirituality is to elevate other humans. If you look at trees, the tree that grows in nature, you look at like any grass on the fields, like everything in earth that is natural abides in something else, it elevates something else. And that is just a natural process of, evolution. That's a natural process of, our, existence, whether you be an animal in the wild or you be, a tree, or you're the clouds in the sky, wherever the case may be, or a human. The natural way really to be, the natural way to really function, abide in nature is to elevate something else rather than elevating yourself. But because we have consciousness, social consciousness, we tend to feed, we have egos, and our egos develop this narrative of who we think we are based on the notion there is spoon-fed to us by the educational system and the religious institutions under the banner of self-interest, under the banner of ambition, and basically makes us stumble and fall. We fall over our feet, we fall down, and we trip because it's not natural for us to be like that. Like we have to work really hard to be self-centered because that's not really what we were intended to be as a species. We were intended to be a species to exercise unconditional love, and to elevate other species, but we are taught not to do that. We taught that it's not in our best interest to do that. Our best interest should be based on self-interest, and that's, was the messed up thing. And this is why this world is the way it is. This is why the political spectrum is the way it is. This is why, it's, people are suffering for lack of a better word. This is why there's so much suffering in the world. Is because that cause and effect is going to have a certain type of outcome and karma, namely karma, and everything that is going on in America is based on karma. It's based on a country self-exerting itself and dominating the world and not thinking about helping the rest of the world. And now the downfall or the fallout is what's going on in America right now. So all the ills of the world, namely in America and also around the globe, is based on self-interest and based on global self-interest and collective self-interest and stuff. And when I was at that concert, I realized that I don't really want to be a part of that anymore. I don't want to take into my thoughts or my psyches any type of tumultuous thought of myself exerting myself because of a covetous heart, and what I mean by a covetous heart, covering things like wanting stuff, having a wanting heart. And if you think of where does that come from, the wanting heart, that comes from a sense of entitlement. And that's why in America, we're kind of more so like that because we've been, given so much luxury, being Americans, that we develop this sense of entitlement. It doesn't matter if you're a white yuppie. It doesn't matter if you're a poor black person in California. We all have a sense of entitlement because it's based on this notion that we think that we're special and we think that we should elevate ourselves over other humans in order to get what is rightfully ours, which nothing's rightfully ours. Like life is not even ours, we were given life by the grace of God, and that's not even ours. And that's why our lives could be taken away anytime, because it's not our lives. It's just something that we are participating in right now, it's a scenario that we are part of right now, but it's not who we are, who we are spiritual beings. Who we are is ethereal, and that's what we really are. That's the true essence of who we are. We're way more than our bodies, but somehow we are reflective of our bodies due to our egos, and our, twisted social consciousness. We let our egos dictate who we are, and it drives our car, and we sit in the back seat of our own car, and we don't even drive our own car, and that's what's the sad thing, and so this is why there's a huge revival. There's a huge revival in America right now, a religious revival. Like, and it's not only in America, it's like all over the world. There's people that are giving their lives to God. There's people that are converting to Christianity in numbers, like in weird countries too, like Iran and like all over the world, and everything. And I'm not saying that people should convert to Christianity, and I'm not saying that Christianity is a religion of the people, and that's not what I'm saying. Everyone has a right to choose their spiritual path. Everyone could choose and pick what they want, that's good for them and everything. Even if you don't want a spiritual path, if you want to be atheist, if you want to be agnostic, whatever the case may be, everyone has a right to choose. But there's a longing that people want. There's something that people are seeking. There's a hunger in people's heart right now, and it's pointing to spirituality, namely, Christianity. And I think the reason why, because there's a lot of people that are preaching like hatred to the Christians, and they preaching this bigotry, So it's like, why would you want to convert to Christianity, when there's so much people, when they're giving Christianity a bad name, why would you want to do that? And people are choosing to convert to Christianity knowing that they're going to be amongst these people who are, cursing society because they want people to convert to Christianity. So it's like, it's kind of an oxymoron. So why convert to a religion that's negative? And obviously we know that not all Christians are negative, but right now on social media, and right now people are going around trying to convert people, and and they doing it in a negative way, but you still have people in huge numbers wanting to convert to this religion. So why is that happening? Because the hunger is so deep, the hunger is so, is so big in people's hearts right now, that people don't care, and also people are seeing through it, and people are realizing that that's one of the aspects of Christianity, is that there's going to be people that are not going to really show that religion in its pure essence and its true light, but they're going to be showing another type of Christianity, another type of Jesus, and it's not going to be wholesome, it's not going to be good, but people are still choosing to be Christians, and I think that in a lot of cases, people just want to prove them wrong by being a good person in these spiritual paths, Like the other day, I saw a video of this, like, extreme, beautiful Gothic girl being baptized. And I was like, you would have never seen a video like that, like, a few months ago, or like a few years ago. But why now? Why are you seeing these? Then I saw another video, another girl being baptized, and these people look so extreme, and they just look so rebellious, and they look like, bohemian artists, and the type of people that never conform to an organized religion, but yet they conform into organized religion because I think somehow they feel like they could change that organized religion into, something good. But I think the more so what's going on in the background in these people's minds is that they want to be humble, they don't want to distort their faces. They don't want to give in to this false notion of this false narrative of paganism, because basically that's just based on, trendiness. The paganist stuff right now is real trendy. We all know that, it's all over the place. Like, yeah, I'm a witch and everything. And I'm not saying that there's not people who do really believe that and they uphold that spiritual path. That's not what I'm saying, but I'm saying the stuff that we're seeing. Look at it this way. Anything you see on social media is a lie. you know, Everything you see on social media. What I mean by that, I mean like anything, even Christianity, namely the Christianity I'm talking about. This has to do with hatred and everything, and fear and everything. That it's a lie. The computer was never meant. Modern technology was never meant to illustrate the truth. It was never meant for that. It was never. It was always a thing to entertain people. It started as something to entertain people, and it's going to end as something to entertain people. That's what it's always been about, and it's information, but it's also misinformation. It's disinformation, actually. That's basically like 98% of the internet is disinformation, So anything that's going to be in conjunction with modern technology and the internet is not going to be based on substantial reality, and the quietness of spirituality is what people are really longing for and seeking their heart, meaning having a spiritual path that is theirs, that can't be taken away from them by social media or by technology, but it's something that's long lasting and is connected to the well springs of eternity, meaning that is would develop some type of joy within their heart, rather than disdain, So I think that that's really the thing that people should look out for. But it's happening right now. The spiritual awakening is happening right now, and people just don't want to be vain anymore. Like, people don't really want to like self-exert themselves anymore. They want to be lowly, and there's a description of Jesus that it talks about, and I'm not hopping on Christianity, but I just love the descriptions. And there's a description about Jesus being meek and lowly in heart, and also exercising unconditional love and elevating humans over themselves. If you think of like the whole crucifixion is actually kind of is a metaphor. If you think about it, every religion has that type of metaphor. It's the sacrificial God. So you could look at it and believe it literally and say was a guy that really lived on earth, that walked around and healed people and raised the dead, and gave sight to the blind and everything. And he was God in disguise of a human body, and was crucified to prove their love to the world. That's such a great story if you really think about it. Even, I'm not saying that story is true, but I'm saying it's a great story and everything. It's such a great story that it's worth exploring, if you hear a narrative like that and everything. So it's a great story, but I think it's more so connected to a metaphor. It's a metaphor, and the metaphor is the metaphor of sacrificial love, the metaphor of unconditional love. If you think about like a woman, giving birth to a child and going through the birth pains, just to give life, that's sacrificial love right there. And back in the days, a lot of women would die when they gave birth, and the baby will be born, but the mother would die. So that's a crucifixion right there, and and men in their own ways crucify themselves too for love, to elevate other things in their lives, like their families and souls and their loved ones and everything. So that metaphor is just a metaphor of what is, really ours, what we really have. And I'm gonna hook you up with a secret here. What we really have is the ability to love. That's what we really have. We have the ability to love, and that is something that's almost never discussed. That narrative is never open. It is never debated, like what it's all about. We hear the word love, a lot, but I don't think people really know what it means to love something, to love someone, or to just be in love with life. I don't think a lot of people know, but really is the really essence of it, the true essence of it is elevating something other than ourselves, and not living for ourselves, and not living in our egos, and not self-exerting ourselves, and not wanting stuff because we have a sense of entitlement, but looking beyond that to the core of who we are as individuals, to have this capability of exercising unconditional love and finding the mechanism of love within us and sharing it, and promoting it. And I think that that's what people really want in this world right now. People desire that. There's a hunger for that right now. And that's why people are converting to these, organized religions. I'm not saying organized religions are good or bad. I'm just saying that people are that hungry for spirituality. They conforming to these, otherwise very strange and bizarre religious paths right now, namely, evangelical Christianity, because their hunger is just so deep in their psyches right now, and they just don't want to self-exert themselves anymore, because that's the lie. If you, I don't. I'm not hopping on Satan. There's a lot of people that talk about Satan. I don't know if Satan's real or not real, but I know that Satan's also a metaphor for how not to be, and you think about the story of Adam and Eve, the story of the tree of knowledge, tree of good and bad, and eating the apple. Those are all metaphors for gaining knowledge that's not going to help us exercise unconditional love, but it's only going to develop pride in our heart and self-centeredness, where we choose based on we choose what we think we desire, or what we think that we need based on our intellectual capacity, our intellectual, mind, and that's what the knowledge is all about, like searching for knowledge and want knowledge because we think knowledge is going to reveal things to us, which it doesn't. The only thing that reveals anything to us is love. When we love, that's when wisdom comes to us. When we exercise unconditional love, that's when we develop the notion of good versus evil, because evil stop doesn't exist anymore when good is dominant, so when we exercise unconditional love and we're on the path of goodness, dualism ceases to exist anymore. So that means the opposites are not there anymore. That means karma doesn't exist anymore. That means bad decision making doesn't exist anymore. All those things melt away, and all we left with is the essence of goodness, and the omnipresence of goodness, which is, that's a word that describe God is omnipresence. I don't know if a lot of people are familiar with that word, but that's just a word that always been around in every religion, but it just means what God, the essence of God is omnipresence, and that omnipresence is total goodness and total love and everything. And we get that by being natural, we get that by exercising unconditional love and being singular, being one way and not bending in all different directions and everything. And I think that when I went to that concert, I realized all that this is something I thought about many, many years ago, but it keeps coming back to me. And then I feel that like right now I'm in a kind of deep religious mode right now, and I was just wondering why I keep choosing this, namely the spiritual path of Christianity, when in fact I know how, harmful this religion been to the world, but I keep falling back on it because I keep looking for the best parts of it, which I know points to just being natural, and everything. And I don't want to be like the people at this concert. They were distorting their faces and self-exerting themselves and being a certain way based on me, being obsessed with self-importance and me being in self with my world that I invented around me because of entitlement, because I think I'm entitled to stand out, or I think I'm entitled to be special in some type of way, when my beauty and my specialness comes from a lowly and meek heart and a heart to exercise, unconditional love that elevates, other creatures, that elevates nature, elevates other things other than myself, and that's how I'm gonna end up being truly happy. That's where I'm gonna find my true peace. Is gonna be in the, in the other, and elevating other things, I know this probably doesn't make sense to a lot of people, but in my mind, as I see it, in my mind, it makes a lot of sense to me. And I just think it's a good thing that people kind of feel the way I feel, and I think that I see it every day on a daily, and I think it's really interesting. And I want to make more video blogs and talk more about it. I want to have more clarity on it because I have it, I can see it in my mind, but I think it's not coming out the way I really want it to come out. But I will return and make another video blog and get into more details.